The neon "Open" sign flickered against the rain-streaked window of Mike's diner, casting an eerie glow across the face of the teenage girl who stood shivering in the doorway. Her hollow eyes met Mike's, and in that moment, he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. What happens when compassion collides with the law? If this story of human connection and second chances touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories that remind us what it means to be human. Mike Coleman wiped down the counter of his diner for the third time that night, a nervous habit he'd developed since becoming both business owner and single father 5 years ago. The small coastal town of Harborview rarely saw customers after 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, especially during the off-season when tourists abandoned the beach for warmer destinations. The rhythmic tapping of rain against the windows had been his only companion for the past hour. At 42, Mike's once dark hair had begun graying at the temples, and the lines around his eyes had deepened since his wife's passing. Running the diner while raising 13-year-old Lily had aged him, but the locals admired how he'd managed to keep both the business and his family afloat despite everything. The bell above the door jingled, pulling Mike from his thoughts. He glanced up, expecting one of the regular night owls, perhaps old Jim from the marina or maybe one of the night shift nurses from Harborview General. Instead, a teenage girl stood in the doorway, drenched from the downpour outside. She couldn't have been more than 16, with dark hair plastered to her pale face and clothes that hung heavy with rainwater. "We're still open," Mike called, gesturing to an empty booth. "Come in out of the rain." The girl hesitated, one foot still poised to run. Her eyes darted around the empty diner, assessing. Mike recognized that look, a cornered animal calculating risks. He'd seen it in his own reflection during the darkest days after losing his wife. "Coffee's fresh," he added, keeping his voice casual. "On the house." Something in his tone must have reassured her, because she stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Water dripped from her clothes onto the checkered floor as she slid into the booth farthest from the window. Close to the exit, Mike noted. "Smart kid." "Coffee would be nice," she said, her voice barely audible above the rain. "Thank you." Mike poured a mug and carried it over, noticing how she flinched slightly when he approached. Her knuckles were raw, and a fading bruise peeked out from beneath her sleeve. He set the coffee down without comment and took a step back, giving her space. "Kitchen's about to close, but I can make you something if you're hungry." The girl's eyes flicked up to his, wary but desperate. "I don't have much money." Mike shrugged. "Night like this? I'm just glad for the company." He returned to the grill and prepared a simple burger and fries, adding extra cheese the way Lily liked it. When he brought the plate over, the girl stared at it as if it might disappear. "I'm Mike," he offered, sliding it toward her. "I own this place." After a moment's hesitation, she replied, "Alex." "My name's Alex." "Nice to meet you, Alex. Enjoy your meal. I'll be at the counter if you need anything." Mike busied himself with closing tasks, deliberately avoiding eye contact to give her the privacy to eat. From the corner of his eye, he watched as she devoured the food with the quiet urgency of someone who hadn't eaten properly in days. Outside, the storm intensified. Wind howled around the corners of the small diner, and rain lashed against the windows with renewed fury. Mike glanced at the clock, 10:45 p.m. 15 minutes until closing. "Nasty night to be out," he commented, wiping down the coffee machine. "You got somewhere to go?" Alex's shoulders tensed. "Yeah. Of course." The lie hung between them, as transparent as the diner windows. Mike had spent enough time raising a teenager to recognize when one wasn't telling the truth. "Listen," he said carefully, "I'm not in the business of prying. But if you need a safe place to wait out the storm, I've got a storage room in the back with a cot. My daughter and I live upstairs, and I open up again at 6. Alex's eyes widened with suspicion. Why would you do that for a stranger? It was a fair question, one Mike had asked himself the moment the offer left his lips. Because someone did it for me once, he answered honestly. When I was about your age, I found myself stranded in a town a lot like this one. The owner of a hardware store let me sleep in his stockroom until I figured things out. Never forgot it. The girl studied him, searching for deceit. Finally, she nodded. Just for tonight, she said. I'll be gone before your customers arrive. Mike showed her to the small storage room behind the kitchen. It wasn't much, just a narrow space with restaurant supplies neatly arranged on metal shelving and a fold-out cot he kept for those rare occasions when inventory deliveries ran late. He brought her a clean towel, a spare blanket, and one of Lily's old sweatshirts. Bathroom's through there, he said, pointing to a door. Lock up when you leave if I'm not down yet. And Alex? Whatever you're running from, just be careful, okay? She didn't respond, but something in her expression softened slightly. Mike left her to get settled and headed upstairs to check on Lily. His daughter was asleep, math homework spread across her bed. Mike gently gathered the papers and placed them on her desk, pulling the covers up around her shoulders. Lily stirred but didn't wake. In the soft glow of her nightlight, Mike could see her mother in the curve of her cheek, the arc of her eyebrows. The familiar ache of loss pressed against his chest. Sleep didn't come easily that night. Mike lay awake, wondering if he'd made a terrible mistake. What if the girl was dangerous? What if she was involved in something illegal? What if someone was looking for her? The possibilities circled his mind like vultures. But the alternative, turning her away into that storm, hadn't felt like an option. By 5:30 a.m., Mike gave up on sleep and headed downstairs to start prep for the morning rush. To his surprise, he found Alex already awake, the cot neatly made and the borrowed sweatshirt folded on top of it. She stood awkwardly in the kitchen, her still damp hair pulled back in a ponytail. I thought I'd help, she said, gesturing to the freshly wiped counters. To say thanks. Mike nodded, unexpectedly touched by the gesture. Coffee's first order of business around here. They worked side by side in companionable silence, Mike showing her how to prep the home fries that were the diner's specialty. Alex caught on quickly, demonstrating a natural aptitude for cooking that reminded Mike of himself at that age. You've done this before, he observed as she expertly diced onions. My grandfather owned a restaurant in Phoenix, she replied, then immediately looked as if she wished she hadn't shared that detail. Before he died. The breakfast rush came and went, and Alex seamlessly transitioned from prep to dishwashing, making herself useful without getting in the way. Mike's waitress, Denise, raised an eyebrow at the new helper but asked no questions when Mike introduced Alex as a friend's daughter helping out for the day. As the lunch crowd thinned, Mike found a moment to check in with Alex. You're good at this, he told her. Ever thought about working in a restaurant? She shrugged, but he caught the flicker of pride in her eyes. Never really thought about what I'd do. Well, if you're planning to stick around Harborview for a bit, I could use some part-time help. Cash pay until we sort out paperwork. Alex stared at him, clearly caught off guard by the offer. You don't even know me. I know you showed up on time, worked hard, and didn't steal anything when you had the chance, Mike countered. That's more than I can say for the last 3 people I hired. For the first time, he saw a genuine smile light up her face. It transformed her completely, revealing the person she might be without fear shadowing her features. I'd like that, she said softly. Thank you. The afternoon passed in a blur of customers and cooking, and Mike was pleased to see Alex gradually becoming more comfortable. She even exchanged a few words with Lily when his daughter stopped by after school, sitting at the counter with her homework as she did most afternoons. By closing time, Mike had decided to offer Alex the small spare room above the diner. It wasn't much, just a box room with a twin bed that had served as storage since Lily outgrew it, but it would be better than the storage room cot. He was just about to broach the subject when the bell above the door chimed. 3 people entered, a sharply dressed woman in her 40s with Alex's same dark eyes, and 2 uniformed police officers. The color drained from Alex's face as she stood frozen by the coffee machine. Mike felt a chill run down his spine. "Alexandra," the woman said, her voice brittle with tension. "Thank God we found you." One of the officers stepped forward, hand resting on his belt. "Sir, are you Michael Coleman?" Mike nodded, his mouth suddenly dry. "Yes." "What's this about?" "We received a report about a missing minor," the officer explained, glancing between Mike and Alex. "Alexandra Wilson, age 16, who disappeared from her home in Fairfield 3 days ago." The second officer moved toward Alex, who backed away until she hit the counter. "Wait," Mike said, stepping between them. "There's clearly a situation here, but maybe we could all sit down and talk about this civilly?" The woman, Alex's mother, Mike presumed, fixed him with an icy stare. "Talk? About how you harbored my runaway daughter without contacting authorities? About how you've apparently put her to work in violation of labor laws? I think we're well beyond talking, Mr. Coleman." Mike felt his heart hammering in his chest. Put like that, his actions seemed not just foolish but potentially criminal. He glanced at Alex, who looked terrified. "Mom," she finally spoke, her voice quavering. "It's not what you think. He was just helping me." "Helping you?" Mrs. Wilson's voice rose. "By letting you sleep here? Working here? Instead of calling the police when a minor clearly in distress showed up at his business?" "Ma'am," the first officer interjected, "perhaps we should continue this discussion at the station." Mike thought of Lily upstairs, of the diner that was his livelihood, of the lifetime he'd spent building a reputation in Harborview. All of it suddenly seemed precarious. "Officers," he said carefully, "I understand how this looks. But I was just offering shelter from the storm to someone who needed it. I was planning to address the situation properly today." "Planning doesn't count for much in the eyes of the law, Mr. Coleman," Mrs. Wilson snapped. She turned to Alex. "Get your things. We're leaving immediately." Alex didn't move. Instead, she looked directly at her mother and said, "I'm not going back to live with him." The statement hung in the air like a thunderclap. Mrs. Wilson's composure cracked, just slightly. "Alexandra, this is not the time or place. If not now, when?" Alex demanded, her voice growing stronger. She pushed up her sleeve, revealing the bruise Mike had glimpsed earlier. "Are you going to wait until he does worse than this?" The officers exchanged glances, clearly reassessing the situation. "He said it was an accident," Mrs. Wilson said, her voice lower now. "He apologized. Like he apologized after he pushed me down the stairs last year? Or when he locked me in my room for 2 days because I got AB on my report card?" Alex's words tumbled out in a rush. "I called you from school 3 times last month. You never picked up." Mike watched the woman's face as her daughter spoke. Something crumpled behind her eyes, recognition, perhaps, or guilt. "Officers," Mike said quietly, "I think there's more to this situation than a simple runaway case." The older officer nodded slowly. "Ma'am, given these allegations, we'll need to file a report and potentially involve Child Protective Services." "This is ridiculous," Mrs. Wilson protested, but her indignation seemed hollow now. "Her stepfather is a respected businessman in our community. So is Mr. Coleman," the officer replied evenly. "And right now, we have a minor making serious allegations of abuse that warrant investigation." What followed was hours of statements, phone calls, and quiet conversations in corners of the diner. Lily woke up and came downstairs, confused and concerned until Mike explained as gently as he could what was happening. As the night wore on, a more complex picture emerged. Alex had fled an increasingly abusive home situation with her stepfather, a man whose charming public persona masked a private terror. Her mother, trapped in her own cycle of denial and dependence, had failed to protect her daughter despite mounting evidence of the danger. When Alex ran away, it was the stepfather who had pushed to involve police, fearing exposure more than genuinely concerned for her safety. By dawn, temporary arrangements had been made. Alex would stay in protective custody while investigations continued. Mrs. Wilson, shaken by her daughter's testimony and the officer's grave response to it, agreed to separate temporarily from her husband pending the investigation's outcome. As they prepared to leave, Alex approached Mike where he sat exhausted at the counter. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never meant to cause trouble for you." Mike shook his head. "You have nothing to apologize for. I just wish I'd understood sooner what you were running from." "You gave me something I hadn't felt in a long time," Alex said quietly. "Safety. And for a few hours yesterday, normalcy. I won't forget it." Before she left, Alex turned to Mrs. Wilson, who stood waiting by the door, her earlier confidence replaced by a fragile uncertainty. "Mom," Alex said, "I still want us to be okay someday." Mrs. Wilson nodded, tears finally breaking through her composed exterior. "I want that too, Alexandra. I promise I'll do better." After they left, Mike closed the diner for the day, something he hadn't done since the day of his wife's funeral. He and Lily spent the morning talking about what had happened, about responsibility and courage and the complicated choices adults sometimes face. "Did you know she was in trouble when you let her stay?" Lily asked as they shared pancakes at their own kitchen table. Mike considered the question carefully. "Not exactly. But I knew she needed help, and sometimes that's enough reason to act. Even if it gets you in trouble." "Sometimes helping others comes with risk," he admitted. "But that doesn't mean we should stop trying." In the weeks that followed, the investigation confirmed Alex's accounts of abuse. Her stepfather faced charges, and Mrs. Wilson filed for divorce, beginning the slow process of rebuilding trust with her daughter. Alex was placed temporarily with her grandmother in a neighboring town, close enough that she occasionally visited the diner. 3 months after that stormy night, Mike received a call from Child Protective Services. Alex had requested permission to work part-time at the diner on weekends, with proper documentation this time. Her caseworker thought the stability and positive environment would benefit her recovery. The day Alex returned, now properly employed and wearing the diner's blue apron, Mike watched her chatting easily with Lily as they folded napkins together. The transformation was remarkable, not just in her confidence or the healthy glow that had returned to her face, but in the way she carried herself like someone who had reclaimed her place in the world. "You know," Denise commented as she refilled coffee cups, "that night could have gone very differently. You took a big chance on that girl." Mike smiled, thinking of the hardware store owner who'd once taken a chance on him. Sometimes a chance is all someone needs. That evening, as the sunset painted the diner windows with golden light, Mike watched Alex teaching Lily how to make the perfect omelet, their laughter filling the kitchen. In that moment, he understood that compassion wasn't just about grand gestures or heroic actions. Sometimes it was as simple as leaving a door open when the storm outside was too fierce to face alone. The road ahead for Alex wouldn't be easy. Healing rarely follows a straight line, and rebuilding a family from broken pieces takes time and patience. But watching her now, safe, purposeful, beginning to trust again, Mike knew that even the darkest nights eventually yield to dawn. And sometimes, the light begins with a single act of kindness in an all-night diner, where a neon sign flickers, open, against the rain.